Hello friends, welcome to Grade Up and I welcome you all to another class of EPFO General Science. And from today's class, we'll be beginning with our chemistry part. Okay, as you know, the general science includes physics, chemistry and biology, and we'll be following that sequence. We have finished the most fundamental part of physics. We have also solved the questions, and you can also solve the quizzes which are provided to you. You can solve the test series where you'll be getting more practice of the physics part. And any doubts regarding it, you can also please ask me. I don't know how many of you are giving the exams seriously, which are provided to you, but please begin practicing. Okay, because towards the last part of the exam, you'll be caught up in current affairs, you'll be caught up in the other areas like history, accounting. General accounting principles is actually quite difficult if you don't have any background of that. So you'll be getting caught up with that during the last months. So during these starting months, it's my sincere advice to you to finish general science, finish the, modern history, the Indian freedom struggle, finish polity, basic general awareness, you try to finish it. So that the last months you can revise the accounting principles and other niche areas of EPFO, the general awareness, the tougher parts of EPFO which is there, you can do that quickly. Okay. So today class, as I was saying, we'll begin the chemistry part, and the first chapter of chemistry is the atomic structure and radioactivity. So I hope all of you know what is an atom. Okay, what exactly is atom? Atom is the most fundamental unit of matter. That was what it was thought, it was the most fundamental unit of matter, but later on the definitions changed because inside the atom we had found that there are protons, neutrons and the electrons. And again, inside the protons, there are the positrons, there are the neutrinos, and inside the electron also, we found more fundamental particles, okay, of baryons, the hadrons, different fundamental particles we have. But at least for our competitive examinations like EPFO and even the IAS UPSC examinations, understanding the atomic structure until what is there in the NCERT general science is more than enough. So this material is sourced for you from NCERTs and also the general knowledge books. So let's begin the class. Hello Prateek. Hello everyone. So a brief historical perspective we have is the idea of divisibility of matter was considered long back, even in India. Around 500 BC itself, we knew about divisibility of matter. An Indian philosopher by the name Maharshi Kanad. Okay, Maharishi Kanad. This person, we also read them in the philosophy. Of course, in general science, I don't know. I mean, in general studies of EPFO, we don't have philosophy and all. But if you've studied UPSC, in UPSC under ethics part also, you read about Maharishi Kanad. Or even in ancient history, he comes. So he had postulated that on dividing the matter called Padarth, it keeps on dividing to smaller and smaller particles. And ultimately, there'll come a point when the smallest particle, from that smallest particle, there is no further subdivisions. And these particles, he had termed it as Parmanu. Okay, you have to remember Maharishi Kanad's name. Okay, around 500 BC. So, after Buddhism had started, during that time, early ancient Buddhism. And another Indian philosopher, Pakuda Katyayama. Okay, he elaborated the doctrine and he said that all particles, they exist in a combined form, which gives us different forms of matter. So basically, he was talking of something like molecules. Okay, so in the combined form, he was alluding to that. And similarly, ancient Greek philosophers like Democritus, Leucippus, they had suggested that after, as you keep on dividing, there will come a point when you can't divide it further. And Democritus was the first to give this concept of atom. Okay, I know, I must be thinking, sir, a general science class aap history kyun padha rahe ho? But this is there in NCERTs, and even for our general science examinations, they ask, like, who was the first to give an idea of atom, from India. So Maharshi Kanad, he has been asked in the competitive examinations, UPSI and other examinations, he has been asked. So now let us delve into the actual science part. So atom, as I told, it is the smallest unit of matter. It was discovered by John Dalton in the modern physics. In modern physics, John Dalton had discovered it. But much earlier, as we have seen, Democritus had given the name atom. And different atoms of same elements, they have the equal mass. Like if you have oxygen atom, okay, oxygen atom all through it will have the same equal mass, 16. Similarly, carbon atom all through it will have the same atomic mass, same mass, 12. So in that way, in different forms, the different atoms of the same element, they have the equal mass. And this atom, it contains several subatomic particles like your electron, proton, and neutron. So let us see them one by one. And the first model of atom, Dalton had basically discovered that there are atoms from a microscopic studies, and the discovery of your electron wave microscopes and all, say we got to know that there are atoms. But still we didn't know inside the atom what is the structure of the atom. So Thomson, J.J. Thomson actually, he had given the earliest model of an atom. He had proposed the model of atom, it is similar to that of a Christmas pudding. This can be asked that, the pudding model of atom was given by which scientist? J.J. Thomson. So he had suggested that the electrons are in a sphere of positive charge. They were like currants. Okay, currants are like, they're like dry fruits. They're like raisins, dry currants. And in a spherical Christmas pudding. I don't know अगर ये तो फॉरेन की बात चल रहा है in the western countries, but इंडिया में जैसे में खीर होता है, so खीर is like a pudding, and खीर के अंदर जैसे raisins कैसे डालते हैं, किशमिश कैसे डालते हैं, so in that way the electrons are in the sphere of positive charge, पूरा positive charge है, दूध is पूरा positive charge, उसके अंदर जो raisins है, जो किशमिश है, those are your electrons. He had suggested that. So, and because the number of protons and electrons, they are equal, he had told that the atom on the whole, has a neutral charge. Okay, so the atom consists of positively charged sphere and the electrons are embedded into it, and negative and positive are equal. So on the whole, it is electrically neutral. Okay, this was told by J.J. Thomson. Next came Rutherford. Okay, Ernest Rutherford. He had experimented to know how the electrons are arranged. Because there were several issues of how J.J. Thomson had given the Christmas pudding, it was a very simplistic model. Just because electrically it's neutral atom, how are you able to deduce that they are like kismis in pudding, So he had conducted the gold leaf experiment or the gold foil experiment in a dark room actually. I don't know, even in your engineering college days, like in my engineering college, in the first year we had this Rutherford model, the gold leaf experiment in chemistry. So if you pass a laser light through the gold foil, and here when you record the effervescence sheets are there, you record how the laser light they are deflected. So Rutherford concluded that most of the space inside the atom, it's empty, because what he had seen is most of the alpha particles, they pass through the gold foil without getting deflected. So if you're having the laser light like this, if you're having the alpha particles, I don't know why I'm saying laser light from then, he had passed the alpha particles, okay, alpha particles he had shown on that, and the thickness of the alpha particles was mostly the same, okay, so mostly they passed undeflected. So he had deduced something like, if this is the atom structure, through this all the alpha particles they are passing, okay, so mostly it is empty. Similarly, very few particles, they are deflected from their path, indicating that the positive charge occupies very little space. You can see here, some very few, they are deflecting here, it's falling here. Okay, I hope this is clear what I drew. So this is deflection. So at the center there must be a sort of positive charge. That is what he deduced. And a very small fraction of alpha particle, they were also deflected 180 degrees. So this indicated that all the positive and the mass of gold atom were concentrated in a very small volume within the atom. Okay, because completely back also 180 degrees somewhere recorded. Okay, until here. So that means there should be a very strong positive mass here. Okay, and he calculated that the radius of nucleus is about 105 times less than the radius of atom. This actually from your lab book you can actually deduct this. I mean, in 1930s this was a groundbreaking experiment, but nowadays you can do this in the lab also. So from the number of deflections, you can calculate the number of deflections which are falling here and the number of deflections here. So from the graphical analysis, you'll be getting that the radius of nucleus jo hai, this nucleus, it is 105 times lesser than the size of the atom. But it's very strong because alpha particles are quite strong. They are 4 atomic mass. So unko hi agar piche la raha hai, it means they have to be quite strong. Alright. So Rutherford, he put forward the nuclear fault atom. He told that there is a positively charged center in an atom called the nucleus. Nearly all the mass of an atom, it resides in the nucleus. The electrons jo hote, they revolve around the nucleus in well-defined orbits. Okay, but the problem was he could not explain the stability of electron in the respective orbits. How are these? Okay, you're telling that electrons, they are revolving around the nucleus. But how are they able to revolve stably? I mean, they should fall down or they should be attracted to the nucleus. How is it possible that they are revolving in such a stable form? So to overcome the objections of Rutherford, Niels Bohr, he had put forward the postulates where he had told only certain special orbits known as discrete orbits of electrons, they are allowed inside the atom. So there are some energy states, like this is the energy state of 2. I mean, if you map, okay, you have these energy states, and in this energy state, the electrons, they revolve. So they are discrete orbits. So in this energy state, it's in an equilibrium position, it attains valency. So they won't be attracted. That is what Bohr had told. And he told while revolving in the discrete orbits, the electrons do not radiate energy. So there is no question of them being attracted or being unstable because they are in a stable equilibrium sort of motion. Okay, but of course there is more to Bohr's model. If you map out the entire Heisenberg's moment of energy and entire Bohr's revolving energy, there is a proper revolving energy because of which they are not attracted. But that much is not enough, it is not sufficient for our, that much is not required for our EPFO examination. Okay, and similarly during that time, Mr. James Chadwick, he had discovered another subatomic particle in the nucleus with no charge and mass nearly equal to that of proton, and he called this a neutron. So these neutrons, they are present in nucleus of all atoms except the hydrogen, and the mass of atom which we have, it is a sum of masses of protons and neutrons. So electrons, they have very negligible mass, so that is not considered for atomic mass, and here we have proton and neutrons, and around this we have the electrons in discrete orbits. Okay, it's not like kahi pe bhi ghum rahe ho. There are discrete orbits in which the electrons, they revolve. Okay, so what is the mass number? Mass number is mass of proton and neutron. Okay, and this proton and neutron, since they occur in the nucleus, they are called as nucleons. Okay, and individually agar dekha jaye, the individual atoms, I mean individual subatomic particles, we have firstly the electrons. So very factual analysis here, like just for one-liners which we need for our EPFO exam. It was discovered by J.J. Thomson by cathode rays experiment. So cathode ray experiment, he had connected a cathode with an anode. So cathode, you have the positive charge, it will emit you the cathode rays, and here he had found the fluorescence which is hitting. So he deduced that electrons are emitted from the cathode ray particles. So their charge is minus 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 and mass is 9.1 into 10 power minus 31. Okay, you have to remember this factual. Okay, ये भी पूछ सकते हैं हमें competitive exams में, like SSC, CGL, EPFO, IB. All these are very factual sort of general science we have. So you have to mug up these figures also. When proton was discovered by Goldstein, he performed canal rays experiment. So this is the opposite of cathode rays experiment, roughly the opposite. So from the anode, if you are connecting to the anode, you are finding the positive particles which are emitted, and there is a red glow behind the cathode. So he named the positive charges H plus ions. and later they were named as proton by R. Rutherford. So they have the same charge as electrons, 1.6 into 10 power minus 19, but positive. And their mass is much greater than your mass of electron. Mass of electron was 9.1 into 10 power minus 31. This is 1.6 into 10 power minus 27. Okay, the mass of protons. And how do you depict an atom? This is how you depict of an element. For example, we have oxygen. Okay, we'll have many examples in the coming slides. So we have the mass number, which is written as A, and the atomic number written as Z. And two important concepts which are very important for our competitive exams. The mass number is defined as sum total of protons and neutrons present in nucleus. And isotopes are the ones which have the same atomic number but different mass numbers. Okay, like your protium, deuterium, and tritium. Okay, let me show you. This is protium, deuterium, and tritium. So you can see inka atomic number are same, 1. Okay, but their atomic mass is more. Why is this happening? This is because they have the same number of protons, but they have the different number of neutrons. Okay, this has 1 proton plus 1 neutron. Okay, this doesn't have neutrons, sorry. This has 1 proton and 1 neutron. This has 1 neutron, 1 proton plus 2 neutrons. So that's why its atomic number is different. Atomic number is same, but atomic mass is different. Similarly, we have carbon isotopes, carbon 12, carbon 13, carbon 14. This is very important actually even for radioactivity, because this carbon 12 isotopes, they disintegrate to form carbon 14 over a period of years. Around 6,730 years mein, the half-life of carbon 12 jo hota hai, half of them disintegrate to carbon 14. So from the C14 to C12, we can also date. Okay, it's a relative dating method. Okay, dating matlab kuch aur mat samjho. Dating is you're dating the fossils or the ancient objects. Okay, if there is a fossil from maybe say the Harappan time. Okay, Harappa, of course, it's not 6,730, but more ancient, like maybe our Paleozoic era or the Cenozoic era, if you're dating the fossils which are left by that time. So how much C14 is there per how much C12 is there? You can get in multiples of 6730. So that much old fossil you can deduce. Okay, that is our isotopes. Similarly, okay, each isotope of an element, it's a pure substance. The chemical properties of isotopes, they are similar, but the physical properties, they are different. Because ultimately, it's the same element. All of them, they are carbon only, different masses. It may have different physical properties, but the chemical properties are same. Okay, this point also you should remember. Next, we have our isobars. What are isobars? They have the same mass number, but they have different atomic numbers. Okay, like calcium and argon. Let me show you. Yeah. Okay, calcium, argon. So they have the similar mass number, but different atomic number. You can see their atomic numbers is 18, 19, 20, but their mass is same. Why? Because the number of protons is different. Number of protons and number of neutrons are different in that combination. Similarly, Fe and Ni. Okay, this also they are isobars. Okay, please remember this, isobars in isotopes. And there's actually another concept, isotones. Isotones, they have the same neutrons, same number of neutrons. Okay, this is isotones only, I'm sorry. It should be isotones. Printing mistake, please correct it. Isotones here. Like you can see, oxygen, here what is the number of protons? Number of protons is 8. What is the number of neutrons? It is 16 minus 8. In nitrogen, what is the number of protons? 7. What is the number of neutrons? 15 minus 7, 8. Similarly, in carbon, protons is 6, neutrons is 8, 14 minus 6. So the number of neutrons is same. And these are the isotones. You can remember N and neutron N. Okay, bar is like a bar. It has more, breadth. So you can think it has more weight. So something to do with weight. So they have the similar mass. And isotopes, so you should remember they are the same element but different masses. So just try to attempt this question. It has been asked in CAPF 2016, easy question. Yeah. So welcome back. So yes, the answer is B. Okay, they have the same mass number. These are our isobars. Yes, really sorry. I don't know what's happening to this class. All right. So I don't know how much you people missed. Okay, we have discussed what is isobars, right? What is isobars we have seen. And I had told what are isotopes. Isobars are the ones with the same mass and different atomic number. Isotones are the ones which have the same number of neutrons. And we have something called as mass defect. Mass defect is something which takes place when the mass is lost in the nuclei generation. So for example, we have the different protons and we have the different neutrons. And these protons and neutrons, they have to be bound to the nucleus. I mean, they have to be bound or they have to be got near to form the nucleus. So to do that, we have to invest some energy because they're in a free state. And this energy which is required to bind them is your binding energy. Or in the other way, if you see, the mass defect is the mass of the free protons and neutrons minus the mass of the nucleus. Okay, I had told this. All right. And Albert Einstein, by his special theory of relativity, he had given the E equal to mc square, which basically means everything which has mass has a sort of energy related to it. Okay, this is the most fundamental equation, and that's why it's a very significant equation. Because the mass which you are having, like for example, if you have mass, if your weight is maybe 80 kgs, you multiply your 80 kg into 3 into 10 power 8, that huge figure is the energy which you have. Okay, that much energy can be got from you if you're disintegrated. So similarly, if you take a rock, that rock also has some energy to it. So everything has some energy to it. That was the fundamental forte or fundamental hypothesis of the Einstein's equation, E equal to mc square. And from the equation of mass defect, as I told you, we have the binding energy. Binding energy is the energy required to separate the particle from a system of particles. Okay, this is the mass defect. This is the difference in masses. And this mass defect, if I multiply with c square, I'll get the binding energy. Or roughly put, this protons and neutrons which are there, to bind them into the nucleus, to get them into the nucleus, we have the energy which is expended, which is the binding energy. Okay, let me just check the internet. Okay, I hope it's clear. Mass defect and the binding energy. If anybody has a doubt, it got cut. So I would advise you kindly watch the recording of this part. Okay. Now let us see what is radioactivity. So radioactivity is the ability of a radioactive atom, generally with higher mass and unstable atoms, to emit radiations. So they were discovered by Henry Becquerel, who had won the Nobel Prize, and the term radioactivity was given by Marie Curie and Pierre Curie. Marie Curie, I hope you know, she's the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in chemistry, and first woman to win it 2 times also. Then they discovered radiations emitted by unstable atoms, and the units of radioactivity are Becquerel and Curie. So there are 3 types of radiations: the alpha radiation, the beta radiation, and the gamma radiation. I'll tell you each of them one by one. First is the alpha radiation. They are also discovered by Ernest Rutherford. So Rutherford kya kar raha hai? He's doing whatever is related to the positive charges, and also the electrons also he was involved in the cathode ray experiment and all, but fundamentally he was associated with the alpha radiations. That's why even the gold foil experiment which you're seeing, he had used these alpha particles on the gold foil to get the Rutherford model of atom which we discovered. So he discovered this in 1899. And this stream of positively charged particles we called as alpha particles. So when an alpha particle is ejected from a nucleus, like you can see here from radium, the alpha particle radon is being emitted, and helium is being emitted. Sorry, the alpha particle is being emitted. So when alpha particle is emitted, the mass number jo hai, it is reducing by 4, and the atomic number jo hai, it is reducing by 2. Okay, this is very important. You have to remember this for our exams. When there is beta alpha radiation, mass number reduces by 4 and atomic number reduces by 2. Similarly, in a beta radiation is nothing but stream of electrons. So when a negative beta particle is emitted, neutron is converted to proton so that the mass number is unchanged but atomic number increases by 1 unit. So carbon 14, if it's converting to nitrogen 14, the number of protons jo hai, it is increasing to balance, because when electron is being emitted. But electron has negligible mass, so the mass number is still same. Here the mass is 14, here also the mass is 14. That is beta radiation. Mass is same, but the number of protons or the atomic number increases by 1 in beta radiation. Next, gamma radiation discovered by Paul Villard. So they are high energy photons. So they have no mass or no atomic number related to them. When the emission happens, there is a huge energy burst. It neither changes the atomic number nor atomic mass, but there is a huge energy burst. Like from here, if you can see the AXZ, it is converted to AXZ and there is gamma radiation. So mass is same and atomic number also is the same in gamma radiations. Fine. Is it buffering for anyone? It's not buffering, right? All right. So alpha and beta emissions, they are accompanied by gamma emission. As an excited nucleus, it drops to a lower and a more stable energy state. So it changes the ionization energy of the atom. So here when you're seeing, this is in a high energy state. So there is emission of the ionization energy in the form of gamma radiations, and this becomes a stable form, stable daughter form. That is gamma radiation. So, but in our exams, you should just remember that in alpha particle, there is +4 and +2, atomic mass +4 and atomic number +2, and the number of, in the beta, you have the atomic mass same, but atomic number decreases, atomic number increases by 1, proton increases. In gamma radiation, there is no difference in atomic mass or atomic number. Fine. Okay, try to answer this question. Which of the following is the name given to electrons moving at a high speed? This is also a CDS question, a UPSC question. So try to answer this. Anyone? Electron emission कहाँ हो रहा है basically? Yes, it is the beta particle emission. Okay, electrons are moving at a high speed. There are some uses of the radioactive isotopes, like iodine is important for our thyroid gland in our body, thyroid gland functioning. Then sodium is important for detecting blood clots in circulation. Arsenic is important to detect cancer cells. Cobalt to kill the cancer cells and tumor cells. Phosphorus is used in chemotherapy treatment. So these are all radioactive substances. इनके अलग-अलग uses हैं. Please remember them. Okay. And the last part, we shall have a brief discussion on what is nuclear energy. Okay. So as I told you, the mass defect and binding energy सब कुछ हम पढ़े थे ना. The mass defect, which is the difference between the mass of the nucleons minus the mass of nucleus. So the nuclear energy is the energy in the nucleus which is released during a nuclear fission or nuclear fusion. I'm just writing to the technical team because there are some issues, right? It's buffering. Okay, I think it's better now. So the mass difference which is there, that into c square is the energy which is produced. And okay, these neutrons split the other nuclei of uranium-235 and reaction continues to form the chain reaction. And if you see the nuclear fission reactor, since there is a chain reaction, to control the fission reaction, we use the control rods, which are made up of boron or cadmium. Like this, the nuclear reactor. Here the reactions take place. We have the uranium-235 and neutrons are bombarded. Okay, neutrons are bombarded with the uranium-235. There is that energy which is produced. So as it is a chain reaction, we introduce control rods of boron or cadmium. These control rods, they absorb the nutrients onto them. So the reaction becomes stopped. But when we remove the control rods, the energy is produced and that amount of heat energy is produced and that is passed through coolant, and this heats up the water. And through that steam is got, that steam is connected to a dynamo. Okay, this revolves and we have the electrical energy produced. Okay, that is how a fission reactor works. Okay, this energy is used for boiling water till it becomes steam, and that steam is connected to the dynamo which converts it into your energy. Similarly, we have nuclear fusion. In nuclear fusion, two light nuclei like the deuterium, such as deuterium, they combine to form a heavy nucleus. So to combine these, of course in fission we have seen if you're bombarding it, there is energy release. But even when you're combining them, they require very high temperatures, but they form a nucleus of a higher atom with an enormous amount of release of energy. So it does require a lot of temperature. It requires around 4 million degrees Celsius. But if you're able to give this much temperature, they'll combine to form even more energy. They'll combine to give you even more energy through fusion energy. And this is what happens on our sun. Okay, on the sun, this is what happens. The hydrogen and hydrogen atoms, they fuse to form the helium. And this reaction is used for making the hydrogen bombs. Okay, you can see this is also called as thermonuclear fusion and stellar energy. So hydrogen and hydrogen, deuterium and tritium in this equation, they're forming helium, 1 neutron and 4 mega electron volt. Okay, this is my fusion energy. So till now, we have not able to construct a nuclear reactor which is using fusion energy, mainly because, as I told you, it requires 4 million degrees Celsius. So it requires a lot of temperature, and we may not be able to control it well also. So presently there are experiments like the tokamak reactor called as toroidal magnetic chamber. It is being readied, and the challenge is the tokamak reactor has only efficiency of 0.67 efficiency. So as I told you, have to put in a lot of energy, then you'll get 0.67 of it out. Okay, so it is not a positive energy efficiency, this tokamak chamber. So all the countries, they have come together to form the ITER, or International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, and it's a collaborative project of US, EU, Russia, Japan, China, South Korea and India also. It is constructed near Kedarake in France. So this is part of your current affairs, ITER, and this is the only sort of reactor where they are using the fusion energy. Alright. So that is the fission and fusion, where we are using radioactivity for the nuclear energy. So brief sort of overview for you. In the fission reaction, we are having the nucleons, the protons and neutrons, and to that nucleus, like uranium atom, uska nucleus ke we are bombarding with a neutron. So it will split into the smaller nucleus like baryons and kryptons, and it will also give you a lot of energy. Similarly, in fusion, what is happening? The nuclei of two hydrogen atoms are fused to form one larger hydrogen nucleus, and it also gives energy. Okay. So that's it, friends. That's the end of today's class. So this is the basic atomic structure and radioactivity which you should be aware of. And any doubts, kindly message me, mail me on b.teja@gradeup.co. Okay, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Okay, and for people who had faced buffering issues in this class, kindly watch the recording. The recording of the class, I'm sure it will be sewn together, and you'll be able to watch it at a stretch. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's meet again tomorrow, same time, 4 o'clock, where we'll discuss the metals and non-metals. Okay, another chapter of chemistry. Fine. Thank you so much.